it's inevitable that every reloader is eventually going to need a reloading bench. And new reloaders often struggle with this crucial first step in the process. In this video, I'll discuss setting up a basic reloading bench. This video is mainly directed at beginners, but I think some of you pros out there are also going to find some useful tidbits of information in this video. A reloading bench does have some specific requirements. First of all, it must be very sturdy. If it rocks or shakes around, your sensitive powder scale is probably going to be off. Or a flexible tabletop might cause consistency issues when using your press. A reloading bench also needs to have a nice smooth surface on it so you can wipe it clean, pick up powder kernels off of it, level things out, and sit cases down on the head. Plywood and particle board make the worst bench tops in my opinion. I mean, even if you sand it and put lacquer over the top. When most people start reloading, they build their own bench. I know I've built many monstrosities out of plywood and 2x4s over the years, and they were just too heavy. They honestly looked like crap, and they were constantly giving me splinters every time I touched them. A plywood top will always make you hate a reloading bench, so I wouldn't do that. But a metal surface on your reloading bench can be horrible too, because you'll get vibrations transferred to your scale. It's an electrical conductor, and it might have corrosion issues. A hardwood or Formica bench top with a smooth surface on it is what most people prefer. A reloading bench also needs to be the perfect height. It needs to be tall enough to work at from the standing position, yet short enough to sit on a stool to do work on it. I find a height of about 40 inches to be perfect. A 40-inch tabletop is the perfect height for running the handle on a press from both the standing position and while using a stool, in my opinion. Some like their bench a little bit taller, some like their bench a little bit shorter, but 40 inches is generally around where I shoot for. I also found through the years that I don't like really deep reloading benches where you have to lean over to get supplies or use tools at the back of your bench. A bench that's about 20 inches deep lets me grab everything on my bench while I'm seated in my stool. For length, it needs to be long enough to probably fit one or two presses, a scale, a prep center, tools, and have room for bullets and brass that you're using to develop or make a particular load. I need a bench personally that's at least 5 feet long in order to comfortably fit everything I need on it. Your space requirements, though, will determine the length of your table. If you want to set up a basic reloading bench in a bedroom, an office, or a small apartment with limited space, this video is definitely for you. In order to skip the complications and difficulties of making your own reloading bench out of wood and making it look decent, most people tend to buy a table or some type of commercial workbench with a smooth surface on it. A commercial workbench looks much nicer to me than than most homemade jobs, which is a good thing if your bench is in the house where people might see it. A commercial workbench can also be disassembled and moved. So if you move to a different home or you switch apartments, your reloading bench is easy to transport with you. And this is actually a bigger advantage than many people realize. The problem is that most commercial workbenches have crappy composite tops that delaminate and flimsy tin legs that have stability or vibration issues. Most commercial workbenches don't make good reloading benches, but there are some good ones out there if you look hard. I actually have a pretty large and elaborate reloading setup in my garage, but when I reload inside my house, in my office in particular, I currently think I have the best compact indoor bench that I've ever owned. It meets my size requirements and it's very sturdy. It has real square tube legs that don't flex or wobble around, and it's held together by thick, sturdy fasteners. And this is a very solid reloading bench. The top of this reloading bench isn't some composite wood with a crappy laminate surface on it. This is real bamboo, and bamboo is super tough. It's stronger than most other furniture grade wood out there, in my opinion. The surface is also very smooth and easy to clean. It's never chipped, stained, or cracked in the 4 years that I've used it. This tabletop also doesn't have a metal frame running lengthwise across the bottom, which makes mounting presses on the very edge of the bench easy, and I like that feature of this bench. All of the metal surfaces are powder coated, and the bamboo surfaces are very smooth. And this bench is rated for 1,500 pounds, which is overkill for reloading, in my opinion. This bench also looks very nice and won't make your house look ghetto if you put it inside. And here's my current reloading bench layout. And let me give you a little tour of my home office workbench here. I have tools, parts, caliper adapters, labels, and miscellaneous things in these bins. And, I might take this stuff off. It kind of clutters the bench up a little bit. And this is my powder throw right here. And it's currently set up for my .223 plinking ammunition. I've been plinking out and practicing with my AR lately. And I believe this Dillon tool head is also set up for .223 ammo. I use this Hornady press right here for depriming brass and other miscellaneous tasks. I have a short and a long decapping die ready for action on this thing. So that's mainly what I use it for. I have a couple of presses that I'll use as my main single stage press, but I probably use my Mech Marksman the most. I don't constantly change presses to follow fads like most influencers do. I just buy a really good press that makes great ammo with very little run out, and I use that until it wears out, and then I'll replace it with another good press. I also have an Arbor press back here, but I only use this for precision ammo to shoot out of precision rifles. I don't use that all the time. And this concentricity gauge right here is for randomly checking for run out. And this is my brass prep center right here. My trimming, chamfering, deburring, and neck brushing happens here. I have this little tray down here to catch shavings from my brass prep operation. But I still use hand trimmers for some cartridges, like my Dangerous Game cartridges. And this is the powder scale I currently have on my table right now. I have several powder scales and auto dispenser systems, but I use my V4 auto trickler mounted over an A&D scale when I'm making precision ammo. And I like this system. And lastly, this is my illuminated magnifying glass right here. And I use this all the time. I use it to do deep inspections on brass. I use it to remove brass trimmings from my hand during prep. I use it to inspect crimps on Magnum ammunition and to read the small writing that they put on everything these days. But this illuminated magnifying glass is a very handy thing. And of course, I have this little vise clamp to my bench right here to use as a third hand when I need it. So that's my basic reloading bench that I have in my home office and I use most of the time. You can also put an additional little shelf underneath the bench and organize some supplies under there if you want. This is a cheap TV stand that I bought at Walmart 4 years ago, and it just happens to slide perfectly under this bench. So that's my basic reloading bench I have set up in my home office. In addition to my reloading bench, I I also have this Lee reloading stand. I used this about 20 years ago when I was competition shooting. I'd use it to do load development kind of in real time at the shooting range, but I replaced this entire setup with a small arbor press eventually, which is what most competitors did. It's currently holding my Dillon 550 on it. And this Lee press stand, I think, is more functional than just a mobile unit that you maybe take to the range to use a press on. That's even necessary in the day of arbor presses, probably not. But what's cool about the stand is, let's say you live in a tiny apartment, or maybe you're renting a room in a house, or maybe you still live with mom and dad, and you have no room for a reloading bench at all. Well, you can slap a press on something like this and put it away in the closet when you're done using it. So it does have its uses in the modern age, and here's living proof. I still use it once in a while. There's two types of reloaders out there. Those that make bulk ammo, they mass produce ammo, and those that make small batches of precision ammo. The bulk ammo guys have multiple big progressive rigs mounted on several tables so they can pump out hundreds of rounds at a time, sometimes thousands of rounds. Their loading room kind of looks like a factory. The precision ammo guy is different. When I look at most F-class shooters' reloading benches, I usually see one single stage press, an arbor press, some calipers, and a scale. And that's it. Their benches are pretty much clean and empty. If you ever watch a heart surgeon or even a master mechanic work, everything is pre-planned before work begins. Only the tools necessary for the job at hand are in the workspace. Anything not needed is stored somewhere else. A surgeon doesn't walk away from a patient to look for a surgical instrument, and a master mechanic isn't constantly leaving the job to make trips to his toolbox. These professionals have everything laid out and planned beforehand. Most master reloaders that I know are kind of like those professionals that I just described. Most people are shocked when they see the minimalist reloading benches that most F-class shooters and professional hunters use. These guys don't care about showing off their gear to people. They just want an efficient workspace. So when you set up your first reloading bench, try to find a place off your bench to store your reloading supplies so your workspace doesn't become cluttered with things that you don't really need for the task. Admittedly, my reloading bench is a little cluttered right now. You really only need a press and a scale on it, to tell you the truth. Don't feel like you're inadequately equipped to be a great reloader because your reloading bench is small or empty. After 30 years of doing this, a small, efficient bench inside your home will probably be your goal. It's funny how everything in life seems to go full circle like that. So never judge a reloader by the size of his bench or the amount of clutter that you see on top of it. Four years ago, this bench right here was only $140, but with Bidenomics over the last few years, this bench is now over $200 on Amazon. If I was starting out reloading today, this is probably what I would get as a reloading bench. Even as an experienced reloader, I usually use this small bench in my office instead of the big setup in my garage. I have a really big reloading bench in my garage that used to have 5 presses on it. And the only thing left on it right now is my Dillon 750. Where I live, it's over 100 degrees all summer and it's freezing in the winter. So I prefer to work inside my house whenever possible. And this bench is just the perfect size for that. Many of you don't have a dedicated shop or garage to put a big reloading bench and a big reloading setup. I mean, that's the reality for most people. And you're forced to set something up in a bedroom or in a small apartment. If so, this is likely the type of setup that you're looking for. Of course, I put a link to this bench in the description below if you choose to go this route. Well, that concludes this video about a basic reloading bench. Thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.